Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be talking about the 5 best perks you should have in survival mode. Now before we get into the 5 perks, let's talk about survival mode and the challenges that go with it. Now just like you may have experienced already in some older Fallout games, entering hardcore mode, or survival mode as it's called in Fallout 4, actually gives you a food, water, and sleep meter. So you essentially have to stay fed and hydrated as well as have enough sleep to carry on throughout the wasteland. However, in Fallout 4, the survival mode takes it quite a bit farther, and there's even more things you have to keep track of. For example, fast travel is completely disabled, and if you want to get somewhere, you have to walk. There's now something called fatigue damage, which can reduce your overall action points. Illness and antibiotics are now something you have to keep track of. Ammunition is actually given a weight, so you can't carry infinite ammunition anymore. You actually have to ration it and only carry a certain amount. Enemies are usually not pointed out on the radar anymore, and then for PC users, console commands are completely disabled as well. So as you can see, they've added numerous more challenges to survival mode rather than just having it a hardcore mode like you've seen in the past Fallout games. Alright, so now let's get into the perks. Starting with Toughness, this one is almost essential because in survival mode, you're a much softer target than usual. Without decent armor, you're going to be lacking a lot of the damage resistance you need to survive. And in survival mode, the damage you take from combat is greatly increased. So in reality, you may only take a few bullets to kill. So in order to make it easier for you to survive, I think Toughness is a great perk to have because it simply just adds damage resistance. And like I said before, auto saves are completely disabled. That also includes quick saves and manual saves. The only way you can actually save your game is by sleeping in a bed. So if you don't sleep in a bed periodically and you die, you might lose multiple hours of gameplay time. So obviously survivability is a huge factor in survival mode, and so Toughness is really going to help you out there. And next up we have Leadbelly, which gives you the ability to take less and less radiation damage from eating and drinking things that are radiation poisoned. Now at first this perk may not seem very useful whatsoever, but I think the entire purpose of putting this perk in the game is for players that actually play on survival difficulty. Unique to survival mode, you have the food and water meters, which you have to keep topped up unless you want to have negative status effects, kind of like you're addicted to drugs. And the only way to keep those food and water meters full is by actually eating and drinking food out in the wasteland. You can't just survive on stim packs like you usually do in the regular Fallout modes. And in survival mode, it's actually a very real possibility that you can die from starvation or dehydration. However, luckily at rank 3 of Leadbelly, you no longer take radiation damage from eating or drinking anything in the wasteland. So as long as you have a constant supply of food and water, you're pretty much good to go. Now the next perk I want to talk about is called Awareness, and I actually discussed this perk in my other video called Top 4 Underrated Perks. So on top of Awareness being a pretty underrated perk that not many people know about or use, I think it's also very useful for survival mode in terms of surviving during combat. And Awareness essentially gives you the ability to view the enemy's level as well as their resistances in VATS. And this can help tremendously, especially at low levels, because you're going to see a lot of enemies with skulls next to their names. And if you see an enemy with a skull next to their name, you know they're extremely high level and they're probably going to kill you in combat, especially in survival mode. So Awareness gives you extremely important information if you have to enter combat, but most of all it gives you a strong indication of whether or not you need to run away from the enemy you're about to face. Now the next perk I want to talk about is Sneak, and I think this one might be a little bit confusing for some of you. Now I think Sneak is really important in survival mode because there's going to be a time where you come across an enemy that you cannot kill. I remember on my first playthrough I went into the Museum of Witchcraft and found a level 61 Savage Deathclaw lurking inside. The most powerful weapon I had was a bolt-action pipe sniper rifle, and I just knew for a fact I wasn't going to get out of there alive. Luckily, I'd been keeping up with my sneak, and I had it up to rank 3. And so the way I actually ended up completing the mission was I snuck through the building and got my objective done without being spotted by the Deathclaw, because I knew for a fact I could not defeat it in combat. And keep in mind, I wasn't even on survival mode, I was on very hard difficulty, and if you're in survival mode, it would have been even tougher for me. So I think Sneak is especially helpful for just avoiding combat when you know you can't beat the enemy you're up against. And in survival mode, it's going to happen much more often than you think. And last but not least, we have Medic, and I think this perk is really important for a pretty obvious reason. As I've said time and time again, combat in survival mode is very difficult, and so periodically ranking up your medic perk will help you greatly in surviving the wasteland. And rank 4 of medic helps especially because it makes the stim packs and rataways work much more quickly, because in survival mode, the speed at which stim packs and rataways work is actually greatly reduced. So if you use a stim pack in the middle of combat, it's still going to take a minute or two for you to fully recover your health. So yeah guys, that about does it for the video, so hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like and share, it really helps with the video's performance. If you think I missed a good perk or have any questions about the video in general, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
Got a doll baby, I love her so. Nothing else like her anywhere you go. A man, she's